I'm literally about to hit a clip.
Get off the game and take a shower.
Bro, I'm literally about to hit this clip.
I do not care. It has been 7 months since your last shower. Get off of the game. You stink.
Hey, Howard here. Ultra Kill is without a doubt the best first-person shooter I've ever played. I'm certainly not alone in liking this game, as it has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, sitting at just over 88,000 reviews in total, and it definitely earns this positive outlook. The game is extremely fun, something you probably won't see in the gameplay in this video, given that I'm pretty bad.
Know your fucking place, trash. Fucking robots. Don't give a fuck about no robots. They ain't got no soul.
Ultra Kill is one of those games that's easy to get the hang of, but incredibly hard to master. The game has a lot of hidden tech that it just doesn't tell you at all. This tech makes some things a whole lot easier. For example, if you see a group of weak enemies, you could take them out with your shotgun normally, or you could punch the bullets as they come out, causing them to explode on impact. The stuff you can do in this game is literally crazy. Is a level too big? Just eject a core from your shotgun and shoot it with an exploding rail cannon. Tired of a floating head shooting exploding laser beams in your face? Just flick a coin in the path of the beam and watch the head along with any enemies in the vicinity get disintegrated into pools of blood and piles of gore. Anything you think you can do, you probably can. This is something that Finnish game dev Hikita makes sure of. There used to be a glitch where if you wall jumped while you were ground slamming, you would store that power and jump insanely high. Most devs would patch that out as soon as possible, but Hikita made it a feature just because it was cool. The game has a heavy emphasis on style and creativity, so much so that you're even graded on how stylish your performance was, encouraging you to get intimately familiar with your entire arsenal. There's a lot of stuff to learn if you want to truly master the game. I don't even know half of what's possible here. And the craziest part is, all of this is part of a game that hasn't even fully released yet. Before this video starts, you know the drill. Subscribe, like the video, share it around, it helps a bunch. There's also memberships for $5 a month, giving you 24-hour early access to videos, access to special chat room in the Discord, video updates in the Discord, and a shout out at the end of videos. Also, follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. If you're still listening and didn't skip the show, here are some keys to get the game yourself. Please play it, you will not regret it. Now, let's get to ultra killing. That's a stupid line, Jesus Christ. Mankind is dead. Blood is fuel. Hell is full. This is the ominous message that serves as the only exposition for the game. Humanity is fallen, and hell is overcrowded because of it. Before that tagline though, there's a boot up sequence that lets you change your settings before giving you a status report. Machine ID V1. Location, approaching hell. Current objective, find a weapon. The game, and you as a player, literally had to boot up. The status report tells you that you're playing as a machine called V1, shown immediately upon entering the tutorial, where you can see your blue robot arm as you punch down wooden planks. The tutorial gives basic movement instruction: sliding, dashing, wall jumping, and ground slamming, which also acts as an attack. This is the skeletal structure of your moveset. Over time, you'll likely find more advanced ways to move around, like how you can jump out of a dash to get great distance, jump after a ground slam to get extra height, or how you can use explosions from your weapons to blast jump like a soldier main in TF2 who has 80,000 hours. The most important thing the tutorial teaches you is the way you heal. Unlike most games where you need to find health pickups, buy health at shops, or regenerate over time, in Ultra Kill you need to douse yourself with the blood of your enemies. Blood literally is fuel. This encourages you to get up close and personal with your enemies so that you're showered with more fresh blood. The more blood that comes out, the more you will be healed. This means that something like a shotgun, which causes lesser enemies to literally be deleted out of the game, will give you a lot of health, while punching them will only give back a little. Once you're more familiar with the game, you almost stop viewing these common enemies as threats, and more as frequent health packs. There is a caveat to this blood healing though. It has to be fresh blood. You can't regain health by blowing a corpse to smithereens. This is probably why you're even in hell to begin with. With mankind dead, the earth is a wasteland. No life, no blood. No blood, no fuel, death. Hell, on the other hand, is completely full up with life, with blood, so you're charging into hell out of necessity, not for a fun vacation. Completing the tutorial, you're taken to the first prelude level where you're given your first weapon before being faced against your first enemies. This is the Piercer revolver, which just acts like a normal revolver until you right-click. Holding right-click will charge a powerful shot that will pass through 3 enemies. It's quickly outclassed later on by high-damage weapons like the shotgun or the rail cannon, which acts as an amplified version of the revolver's pierce shot. It's always a good weapon though, dealing good damage and cutting into groups of small enemies like butter. Revolvers also deal locational damage, so headshots will deal more damage than body shots. The first enemies you face against after picking up the gun are the Filths. There are 4 main classes of enemies, and this is the first of the Husk variety. Husks are physical manifestations of the souls of the damned. Their forms are determined by the value of their souls as they lived, which is based off of the souls that remember it. The Filth's souls were so unimportant that their corporeal form isn't even complete, with them missing their arms and having no real face, just a big gnarly mouth. I assume they were Genshin players or something. They're pretty easy to deal with the Piercer, and only become easier as you unlock explosive weapons, letting you kill entire swarms of them in 1 or 2 shots. They remind me of the flamingos from Post-Void, who are also armless creatures that bite at you. Later on, you'll encounter the Stray, another type of Husk. Unlike the Filths, which are extremely mobile and will relentlessly chase you down trying to take a bite of you, the Strays stay almost motionless, standing their ground as they throw balls of hell energy at you. The orbs they throw travel in a straight line towards you, making it incredibly easy to dodge, or if you're confident in your timing, you can punch the ball back to them or at other enemies to deal huge explosive damage. Projectiles like this can always be parried no matter who's shooting them. For example, the Malicious Face, which is the closing boss fight for this level. It alternates between shooting the parryable red orbs and an unparryable laser beam that can be interrupted by quickly punching them before they shoot it. This is the first demon you face. We are in hell after all, so what did you expect? Demons are made out of hell mass and protected by a stone-like shell around their innards. The Malicious Face is a boss for now, but later on becomes a fairly common enemy. They're invulnerable to explosions, so the best way to deal damage is by parrying their orb spam back into their face, or getting up close with a shotgun. And I'm saying this now so that people don't spam my comments about it. Yes, the Malicious Face is also called Maurice. I kept calling it the Malicious Face throughout this script, and don't feel like changing every instance to Maurice, so. Getting up close and personal, while a great way to damage the Malicious Face, is also a great way to damage yourself. If you're playing on the hard difficulties, standard or violent, 35% of the damage you receive will be transferred to hard damage, temporarily capping your max health. This is really bad, as it gives you less wiggle room to make mistakes, so it encourages you to learn your enemy's attacks rather than just tanking the damage and healing it back with their blood immediately after. If you're playing on the easy difficulties, lenient and harmless, you receive no hard damage, and you're a pussy. Beating the boss and jumping down the chute, you're graded on your performance in the level, with your time, kills, and style being graded from D to S. Time and kills are pretty obvious. Beat the level faster and with more kills to get a higher score. Style is something I mentioned in passing in the beginning of the video, but basically it's your overall score in the level, determined by how flashy you are. For example, a normal kill gets you 30 points, a headshot gives you 80, parries give you 100, etc, etc. It's shown to you on the right-hand side of your screen, where it ranks from destructive to chaotic to brutal to anarchic to supreme to sadistic to shitstorm to, finally, ultra kill. Each rank increases how fast hard damage will regenerate, with hard damage received on ultra kill being regenerated instantly. If you were stylish enough and racked up enough points, you'll get an S rank at the end of the level. Getting an S rank in time, kills, and style, and not dying at all throughout the level will award you the coveted P rank, standing for perfect. These P ranks are very important a bit later down the line, but for right now it's just a cool letter to strive for, to boast about. Landing in the second level of the prelude, the Meat Grinder.
If I chop you up in a meat grinder,
you can look at the terminal stationed in the room before leaving. This is where you'll get a lot of the world's lore, as a lot of the enemy's entries make direct reference to what led to mankind's demise or the happenings of hell. It's also where you can buy new weapons using points gotten by getting good scores in the grading process. 2 weapons are available for purchase off-rip, the Marksman and the Sharpshooter, 2 revolvers. The Marksman is the cheapest option, and it's by far the best revolver, probably the best weapon in the game. Why? What could make a revolver the best when you have explosive shotguns and electric rail cannons? Coin. I think we all know the phrase, money makes the world go round. Well, apparently it also makes a majority of the enemies in the game go bye-bye in half a second. The Marksman is just an ordinary revolver, but right-clicking makes you flick a coin. Shooting this coin in the air makes it auto-target the nearest enemy and beeline for their weak point, whether it be the head or an explosive canister on their back. But if you notice, when you flick a coin, there's a yellow flash that appears for just a brief moment. If you shoot the coin in that small window, it splits into 2 and targets the 2 nearest enemies. It'll also split when you hit it when it sings as it falls from high enough. And that's not all. You can flick multiple coins at once, and when you shoot one, it'll target the others, causing it to split into even more coins, dealing more damage. And you can shoot them with any hit scan weapon, which are any of the revolvers and 2 of the rail cannons. Like, look at this clip of one of the boss fights where I literally kill it before the fight starts by just punching a coin at them. You can flick a coin into the beam of the malicious face for an instant kill. You can punch the coin, causing it to gain damage with each punch. You can instant kill some enemies like the malicious face in one shot by flicking a coin through them, then shooting a rail cannon at the coin, causing it to pass through them twice. I could sit here and talk about the coin for literally probably at least multiple minutes. I don't even know all the shit you can do with these stupid little coins, but this weapon is literally god tier, and if you can get good with the coin timing and learn its synergies and combos, you'll be a force to be reckoned with. The sharpshooter is good too. It pales in comparison to the marksman. It's still a good gun, and in some instances is a direct upgrade to the piercer, but the marksman is literally the best weapon in the game. Basically, when you right click, you'll start spinning it, and when you release it, it'll shoot a ricocheting bullet that pierces through infinite enemies until the shot expires. It also has the added benefit of exploding hell orbs when you shoot them, allowing you to insta-kill most enemies who fire them if you time your shot well. There's something to be said about the weapons, though. While some of them may be considered better than others, they are all extremely viable, with only one being considered a bad weapon, and even then it's serviceable. The Terminal also has 2 unique game modes: the Cyber Grind, which is an endless survival mode to test and hone your skills, and the Sandbox, where you can lab skills you don't know or are unfamiliar with without the pressure of being in an actual level. It's good for learning some more difficult bosses that I'll discuss later on. The Sandbox level is literally just GM Construct from Gmod, by the way, but you probably didn't need me to tell you that. After exploring the Terminal to your satisfaction, you can finally move on to the level. The strays are much more common here, with them even being the first enemy you come across. They're in every single room, unlike in the first level where they were only in the latter half. It's small, but it is an increase in difficulty because now you have to worry about swarms of filths and the strays' hell orbs at the same time throughout the whole level. This level also introduces more environmental hazards in the form of the crushers. In the first level, there were the classic bottomless pits, Crash Bandicoot style, but now there are these big industrial crushing machines that will instantly splatter you and any enemy under it into a pile of goop. There are a few other types of insta-kill hazards, like the fans or grinders, usually situated in bottomless pits. In one room, you can see that a vent grill has fallen off the ceiling. Using a slam bounce to get up into the duct, or if you're like me and didn't know I could do that until I started scripting this video, do an awkward wall jump up there and you'll find a blue skull on the pedestal. These skulls appear in many levels, coming in both blue and red variants, and act as keys. Placing it upon another pedestal of the same color will open up a locked door. Taking the skull and placing it on a blue pedestal in another room, a wall falls down, revealing a hidden chute. You fall into a room that's very similar to the ones you've been falling into, but this one is gray and lacks a terminal. This is the Prelude's secret level, of which there are multiple in the game. This level is called Something Wicked. Picking up the skull in the middle of the room, you can hear an exhale, and the line, "Something wicked this way comes," appears on the screen. This is a line from Macbeth by Shakespeare, said by witches, marking the arrival of the titular character and tyrannical ruler, Macbeth. It means that a monster is approaching, and that's exactly what's happening here, as a tall, thin monster is roaming around the area looking for you. This is Something Wicked. Yes, that's really its name. It has very little information known about it. Not even its type is known. It can't be killed, but if you manage to shoot it, it'll teleport to a different part of the map. You beat the level by placing a blue and red skull on their respective pedestals, granting you access to a chute leading out of the level. But before you go, there's a terminal with a poem, a testament written by God. Mankind is a failure. Free will is a flaw. Let the evil of their own lips consume them. Then I shall begin again, with my word as law. This testament describes God feeling as though he has failed humanity, leaving them to die, only to come back once they're gone so he can start anew. Mankind is dead, as the tagline says, so God is due for a return. It's unclear how mankind ceased, but it's clear that God didn't intervene, and it seems they died out on their own. Unlike every other level, secret levels aren't graded, and they aren't canon to the story. The testaments awaiting at the end of them, though, are canon. Playing through the second level for real this time, you can see a yellow machine wielding a sword. This is the first machine outside of V1 that we're introduced to, and it's pretty clear that they're also extremely well versed in combat. Beating the level and playing through the third, you're introduced to another Husk, the Schism. These enemies are two souls who manifested together as one, causing a creature with double the body mass, giving them higher health and making taking them down harder. Due to this extra body mass, they have poor control, unable to aim with any accuracy, forcing them to resort to spraying hell orbs everywhere. At first glance, it may seem like they have no head, but they do. They were so deformed during their creation that the head was embedded into their shoulder. Going down a flight of stairs, you meet the machine from the level before. The Swords Machine. It swings its sword wildly, sometimes throwing it, sometimes shooting at you with its shotgun arm. Something that makes this fight easier is the ability to parry. Just like how you can punch back Hell Orbs, whenever a golden flash appears before an attack, you can punch to deal great damage and heal your health back up to full. However, this causes a new effect. Rage. Under certain circumstances, an enemy will become enraged. The effect changes between the enemies, but the Swords Machine moves and attacks faster and will no longer use its shotgun. Defeating the Swords Machine, it just kinda disappears and drops a shotgun. This is the Core Eject shotgun, named after the fact that you can launch an explosive core, allowing you to wipe out swarms of enemy with ease or break walls with cracks on them. The biggest difference between the revolvers and the shotguns, besides the obvious, is that the revolvers were hit scan, while the shotguns shoot projectiles. This doesn't seem like a massive difference at first, until you remember that nearly every projectile is parryable. This was actually a bug due to your shotgun's projectiles using the same source code as the Swords Machines, whose shotgun was intended to be parryable.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention it before, but fan favorite projectile boosting obviously started off as a bug. Back in the Prelude 1.02 or 1.03, I was just testing 03 for whatever reason, and I was just like, oh yeah, I can actually parry the Swords Machine shotgun. Yeah, but wait a minute, don't the player's projectiles use the same code and the whole same system, so maybe. And then he just do oh my god, it's cool tech. The game has the coolest video game tech of all time.
Hakita, in his wisdom, thought this was so cool that he just made it a feature. Now that we have enough weapons unlocked and equipped, there's something that I didn't mention when I spoke about style. Weapon freshness. Weapon freshness is what will encourage you to swap weapons the most, if having fun wasn't a good enough motivator. Weapon freshness goes from fresh to used to stale to dull, with each tier giving you lower multipliers until you just stop receiving style points altogether. To keep your meter fresh, you have to switch weapons. The more you use one, the lower you'll go down the ladder. Whenever a weapon is unequipped, its freshness will slowly increase until it's pulled out and used again. Encountering and defeating the Swords Machine a second time, you're able to finish it off. You were able to encounter the Swords Machine early in the meat grinder, hidden behind the crushers in the final room, which gives you the shotgun early if you were to complete the fight. The Swords Machine was a machine obsessed with collecting scrap from other machines, augmenting itself so much that the original form is completely unrecognizable. The Swords Machine you see in level 2 and 3 is the only Swords Machine, but its form was so beautiful among scrap heads that its design was imitated by many machines, explaining why more appear later on. The Swords Machine, if you couldn't tell, isn't from Hell. It's a machine like you, so it likely came from the Earth into Hell looking for more fuel, just like you are. After beating the level, you can head to the terminal to check out the new weapon for purchase, the Pump Charge, another shotgun. This is a great shotgun. When you right-click, you pump it, causing it to shoot out more pellets. Pump it 3 times and it'll explode, taking half your health. However, if you dash at the right time, you'll avoid the damage, leaving you with a better explosion than the Core Eject and giving you the biggest single source of damage in your arsenal at the moment. Unlike the revolver, which had 3 different types, the shotgun only has 2, with the third being under construction, since it hasn't been implemented into the game yet. It's so easy to forget that this isn't a complete game, since it's so polished and just has so much going on. Even the difficulties aren't fully implemented yet. There's harmless and lenient for easy, and standard and violent for hard, but then there's brutal and ultra kill must die for very hard, which aren't in yet. But on Twitter it was shown that Fils would be doing this. So that's cool. The 4th prelude level doesn't have much to talk about as it's just more of what you've been doing, but it does mark the start of the malicious face becoming a normal enemy, with it appearing at the start of the level. The prelude finishes off with a boss fight, fighting 2 huge statues at once. They appeared earlier in some levels, but never attacked. These are the Cerberus, named after the 3-headed hound of Hades in Greek mythology who guarded the gate to the underworld. That's their function in this level too. We're only at the entrance to Hell, and these statues try to prevent you from breaching the gates. Cerberi, like the malicious face, become common enemies later on. They sit in a Thinker-esque pose and will remain so until aggravated. Cerberi only have 3 attacks: throwing their energy ball at you, which explodes on impact, stomping their feet causing a small shockwave, and dashing towards you. The best way to avoid their energy balls is by sticking close, as they'll never throw it as to not damage themselves, but you can bait them into throwing it at themselves anyway. Killing a Cerberus while there are others awake will enrage the ones who remain, causing them to attack faster. Unlike the Swords Machine, whose rage wore off after a bit, the Cerberus will stay enraged until death. Killing the Cerberus, you're granted passage into Hell. Ultra Kill is broken up into 3 acts, each having 3 layers. The first and second layer of the acts have 4 levels, while the third has just 2. The crescendo, the build up to the end of the act, and the climax, a big boss fight. The first layer of Hell is Limbo. Limbo is a place between heaven and hell. There are 2 types of limbo in Catholic theology, the limbo of the fathers and the limbo of infants. The limbo of infants is where people who were unbaptized reside after death, and that of the fathers was where people who had sinned but died in the friendship of God were held until they were redeemed by Christ. In both, it is a place where people were not condemned to punishment, but were still withheld from eternal happiness in heaven with God. This is reflected in the first level, where it isn't hellish despite the fact that we're officially in hell. There's grass and flower beds and even a clear blue sky, but it's all fake. The sky is clearly just paintings. In some depictions of Limbo, it's said to be a place of joy, though not as joyful as heaven. This is why it looks so happy, with even the music being cheery and calm. It's a very warm welcome into hell, ironically enough. That is, until you're met with the first enemies of the level, causing the soundtrack to get frantic and sound almost confused. Because while the level looks nice and serene, this is still hell. Things are still trying to kill you. These new enemies are the drones, originally built to be security devices, but after the death of humanity, they've equipped themselves with lethal weaponry to try and get more blood to keep them powered. The best way to dispatch these guys is with a quick explosive shotgun blast, or of course, a quick split shot with the coin. Since they're so light, they're able to avoid the nail gun, the weapon found in this level, with ease, rendering it ineffective. This is the attractor nail gun, a name based off of how, when you right-click, you'll shoot a magnet that causes every nail you fire to be drawn to it. This is great for dealing damage to a single enemy, such as the Cerberus. Just pop down a few magnets during his wake-up animation and let him step into the trap. It's an alright weapon, but there's a better version of it later on. The final room of the level is an arena where you fight schisms and drones. There's glass on the roof, which if you jump through, you'll find a slab with the Roman numeral 1 engraved onto it. There are 4 of these, 1 in each level of Limbo. Clicking the slab, it says that a mechanism has activated somewhere deep in the layer. Beating the level, you're graded as per usual, but there's a challenge presented that seems impossible, that being beating the level in under 10 seconds. Challenges are something that I've neglected to mention so far, but they're present in every level, giving you something to work towards when you feel like you've done everything else. To beat this level's challenge, you have to flick a coin into the fountain at the start of the level, causing the platform to shift to the side, revealing the secret exit. That is, unless you're one of 2 speedrunners who got to the main exit in just 9.5 seconds. Literal god sweat, by the way. Limbo's secret level is a much more enjoyable experience than the preludes. It's called the Witless, and it's a series of puzzles where you have to connect the filled-in dots to the hollow dots. This entire level is a direct reference to the 2016 game The Witness, where you solve the same types of puzzles. Outside of something wicked, every secret level has some type of thematic connection to the layer it's found in. Limbo is a place where people are left to wait for an eternity in a false paradise, the same way it feels when you get stuck in a puzzle game, how you're left beating your head against a wall, left to wait until the solution pops into your head. Something I love, spoilers for The Witness by the way, skip to the timestamp if you care, 3, 2, 1. Something I love about this level is that the song for it is called Sanctuary in the Garden of the Mind, and in the secret ending of The Witness, it's revealed that everything you did in the game was in the mind of its developer, who was hooked up to some sort of a machine. It's not really relevant to the level itself, I just thought it was a cool connection. Beating the final puzzle, you're granted access to another testament. Failure after failure after failure after failure. The results refuse to alter. Again and again and again and again, my faith begins to falter. This is God describing the creation of humanity, specifically the free will that humans possess. It sounds like he views humans as something like lab rats, like they're just experiments, with God trial and erroring the creation. That is exactly how heaven views humanity, as in the terminal data of an enemy you encounter later, it's said that humankind knows very little about heaven or angels because they want nothing to do with God's human experiment. The angels in heaven clearly viewed mankind when it was still kicking as insignificant and inferior to them and the glory of heaven and God. Before moving on to another level, you can check the shop to buy the Overheat nail gun. This gun works essentially like the Heat Blast mod for the plasma rifle in Doom 2016, with the more you use the gun, the more energy gets built up, which you can release as a quick burst of damage. The Overheat nail gun is very good. The more you use it, the more energy you build up, and right-clicking shoots a flurry of flaming nails that set enemies on fire. It's good for the malicious faces, but you'll want to be mindful of your weapon freshness. Since this weapon fires such a high volume of projectiles, it goes from fresh to dull extremely quickly. I found the Overheat to be the better nail gun overall, with it being able to easily incinerate large groups of enemies. The Attractor is good for burst damage to enemies or bosses in their wake-up animation, but I hardly ever found myself using the Attractor fighting normal enemies, at least not until I got the alternate version later on. The second level of Limbo is more of the same as the first until you get to one hallway where the music cuts out. Various chunks of filth and strays lay burning, and opening the door, the once blissful paradise is completely engulfed in flames. This is the introduction of the Street Cleaners, another type of machine. These guys, oh my god, dude, genuinely fuck these guys.
I want something so bad, I can't believe it. A new kind of bad that'll blow me away.
They're pretty quick, and if they get near you, they'll spray you with their flamethrowers, dealing massive damage very quickly. They'll dodge your projectiles, i.e. the shotgun and nail gun, and the most reliable way to take them down is to fling a coin behind them, shooting it to launch it into the canister on their back for an instant kill. Their terminal data is the first to give meaningful insight into the world before the death of man. It says they were built to purify tainted air after a climate catastrophe, but that the new peace rendered them obsolete. What generally precedes a time of peace? War. It's likely that there was a major global conflict, resulting in a lot of pollution and thus the need for the street cleaners. During the new peace, they were sent into hell as scouts, but they were so hardwired to clean that they started to burn all organic life. Outside of the one part in the hallway, though, you never see the street cleaners burn anyone but you. I assume it's because you're such a threat that they have to focus you down.
I'm killing you. I'm killing you. I don't care about anything else. I don't give a shit about anything else. My programming is just get that fucking guy right now.
The level continues until you reach this room with a Cerberus. You're meant to go through the door behind it, but if you instead go to the right, you'll see a cracked wall. There are a few of these throughout the game, and they can be broken by using any explosion or a shot from a gun you get later on. In the wall, you come across the hardest fight in the game. Oh, well, there's nothing else to do here, so let's just leave. Jesus Christ! Good God, it's the very cancerous rodent, no! What am I doing, dude? Killing the very cancerous rodent, it reveals the second slab, giving you the same message as the first. The third level is different from all others so far, in that it's not linear. It's more of a choose-your-own adventure, as you could either go through the left path to get the red skull, or the right for the blue. You only need one skull to open the door, but if you're in for some extra credit, you can get both, causing some stained glass to fall, revealing a secret boss encounter with two swords machine variants, Agony and Tundra. Agony acts like a permanently enraged swords machine, attacking quickly and unable to be staggered by parries. Tundra uses the swords machine's phase 2 attacks, throwing its swords and using its shotgun. To defeat them, you have to get both of their health down to 0 at the same time, or the one you knock down will just regenerate its health. Beating the encounter grants access to the third slab of 4. With the skulls on the pedestal, the boss door opens and you can fight the Hideous Mass, another demon. Most of its body is covered in the shell that's common of demons, but this is different. It's impenetrable. But so much hell mass has been poured into this shell that it's spilling out at the seams. Specifically, its stomach and scorpion tail. Those are the only areas that you can damage it. This boss alternates between an upright and laying form. When upright, it'll shoot these glowing mortar balls that deal massive damage if they hit you. Laying down, it'll use its tail to hook onto you, slowing your movement if it connects. It'll also slam the ground, leaving a shockwave, dealing damage and bouncing you into the air if it hits. Getting its health low enough gets it enraged, where it flips on its back and shoots its glowing balls constantly. Or, if you're too lazy to fight the boss, just grab a bar of soap to insta-kill it. It has basically the same reaction as the average Redditor when you tell them to take a shower. The soap is a reference to New Blood's other game, Dusk, where a bar of soap can be found in every level and deals 1 billion damage to any enemy it's thrown at. Soap only appears twice in Ultra Kill, with the second appearance being in 4-3. The final level of Limbo is Clair de Lune, named after the song that plays for the duration of the level. It takes place in a manor, with a door that's gated off, needing 3 blue skulls to be opened. Taking a look around, you can see a dead person praying to a low-quality PNG of an angel, with "Forgive me" written in blood. There's also the first book of the game. Since we're a machine, we're able to scan the entire book for only the important text, with all the rest being deemed irrelevant. The book, written by the owner of the manor, talks about how he had been accepting of his damnation, holding on to his faith, his hope that Gabriel would free him and accept him into heaven. Gabriel in the Abrahamic religions is the archangel that announces God's will to mankind. This is his role in Ultra Kill too. He sort of takes Jesus' role in Limbo, as it's Jesus who accepts those in Limbo into heaven, but in Ultra Kill, it's Gabriel. He's the angel depicted in the stained glass prayed to by the skeleton. He is the most important character in the game. Keep him in mind for later. Doing some more looking around, you'll see the 4th slab in front of a door marked with all 4. This is likely the first one you'll find before breaking down and looking up the locations for the rest. Coming with all 4 pressed, the door will open, giving you the alternate revolver, dubbed the slab by the community. It's a very strong version of the revolver and can be toggled on each type, but it's only good on the piercer and sharpshooter. When you use the alternate marksman, you can't split the coin. This is the only gun that would be considered bad in the entire game. The slab does a lot of damage at the cost of having a fairly long cooldown compared to the original revolver. After placing the 3 skulls on the pedestals, the door opens, revealing the most obvious boss arena of all time. This is V2, also known as the boss that gave Jerma a mental breakdown live on stream.
Humans aren't supposed to be doing this. Like, we're supposed to be like, "Oh, howdy, how are you? Good to see you." We're not supposed to be like...
You'll notice that both its name, the way it looks, and how it plays is almost exactly the same as you, the player, V1. It uses its revolver, shotgun, even its core eject and pierce shot at some points. It's incredibly mobile, running from you if you try to get too close, or closing in on you if you try to run back. You'll notice it has a bar that fluctuates at the top. This is its patience. If you keep running away from it, it'll enrage to discourage such a passive playstyle. Beating V2, it jumps away, but not before its arm falls off, giving you the second of 3 arms, the Knuckle Blaster. The Knuckle Blaster does great damage, at the cost of punching slower and being unable to parry anything. Quickly switching between your 2 arms is a great skill to learn, and can open up many avenues for damage, but I suck at the game, so I hardly ever did it. V2's terminal data confirms that before the new piece, there was a war going on, causing the V-model machines to be created, with V1 having plating that absorbs blood on contact to refuel at the cost of it being weaker. When the new piece was established, the blood absorption was ditched for V2 since there was no more bloodshed, allowing its plating to be stronger. It's a very good explanation for why 2 seemingly similar machines are so different in combat. I mean, V1 will drop after like 3 shotgun blasts, but V2 can withstand a lot, and they even survive the encounter. Due to there being no demand for machines of war though, both V models were cancelled before reaching mass production, leaving only 1 prototype of each model. By the way, you can literally end the fight before it begins if you keep punching a coin at V2 as it bows. Leaving Limbo, you're taken to the second layer of Hell, Lust. Each layer houses the sinners of their type, so Lust houses those who sin by loving another, Wrath holds those who held exceptional anger, Gluttony of those who overindulged, etc, etc. Almost immediately, Lust is incredibly different from Limbo. It's very purple, and it looks something like Tron, incredibly retro-futuristic. Lust is a grand city, fitted with great bridges and houses. The houses even have books, furniture, and beds in them. There's no torment here, despite it being hell. In Limbo, the torment came from the crippling loneliness, from being forced to look at the same painted sky day in and day out. But here, there's nothing really unpleasant. The second level introduces a new enemy, the soldiers. They're strays who've been augmented with scrap from machines, causing them to be much tougher enemies. The odd thing is, they didn't do this to themselves. The game doesn't say who or what did it, but it is a neat detail. Their machine components render them immune to explosions outside of reflected hell orbs, which, if you were anything like me, someone who grew to rely on boosting your shotgun's projectiles to wipe out lesser enemies, will be a nuisance. You can find another book in one of the houses in this level, detailing how the original ruler of the Lust Layer, King Minos, was brutally killed by Gabriel in the name of God. In the book in Clair de Lune, the manor owner seemed to hold Gabriel in high regard, calling him his dearest friend, but here he seems callous, viciously murdering the King of Lust for seemingly no reason. The most important discovery in this level, though, is the rail cannon. This is the strongest weapon in the game, and can be used to one-hit enemies like Cerberus if you combine it with coins. It's a giant beam of electricity that passes through enemies, basically the pierce shot on crack. It recharges passively, so when you use it, you just have to wait a bit before getting another shot. The rail cannon has two variants you can buy, the screwdriver and the malicious rail cannon. I never personally use the screwdriver, but it embeds a drill into any enemy it's shot at, causing them to bleed profusely, making it an excellent healing tool. The malicious rail cannon is extremely good. It gets its name from the fact that it's literally the malicious face's explosive beam in a gun. It's great for taking out hordes of weaker enemies, but my favorite thing to do is nuking. By using the core eject's explosive shot and shooting it with any gun, it'll make the explosion bigger and deadlier. However, shooting it with a malicious rail cannon will make an even bigger explosion, a literal nuke, killing any enemy foolish enough to step up to it. You have to be quick with it to make the shot in time before the core hits the ground, but once you do it, you become addicted to the power. The third level of Lust introduces the Mind Flayer, an incredibly dangerous machine. The majority of the body you see is actually just plastic, with the machine on top of it being its weak point. These guys, or should I say ladies, as usually their forms are female, launch a new type of projectile, similar to the red hell orbs, but these ones are blue and home in on you. Killing a Mind Flayer will cause it to explode, dealing massive damage. In that way, they're similar to the drones, who will launch themselves at you on death, just with a larger explosion radius. They're not the most common, but when they do show up, they're usually the most threatening enemy in the room. You can insta-kill them with a well-timed explosive round as they shoot their projectiles, as it'll reflect all the projectiles back onto it. You'll notice that as the enemies in Ultra Kill go, the Mind Flayer is a bit of a baddie. This was intentional, as this is the Lust layer. Hakita wanted a succubus-esque enemy without it being too generic.
There's one. Did Hakita try to make the Mind Flayers hot? Yes, absolutely, because the whole thing is they're supposed to be a kind of succubus equivalent, because obviously I don't just want to do an actual succubus, because those are fucking lame, but the idea of just like, because they're in the Lust layer, so I just wanted to like, well, we have a Lust layer, obviously we have to use some kind of succubus, so instead of just doing like a lame ass fucking hot demon girl, I just wanted to like, hey, what if we make like a weird combination of like sort of sexualized female caricature, but like make it all like weird and robot and kind of off-putting.
In one room, you'll notice an exit door hidden behind a waterfall, but the water is flowing too quickly to get through. Destroying 3 power boxes controlling the water supply, the water will drain from the level, granting you access to Lust's secret level. Keeping with the pattern of a layer's secret level matching its theme, Lust's secret level is a dating sim / visual novel where you talk to the hottest babe in town. This level has no importance whatsoever to the plot. I mean, there's not even a testament at the end or anything. The final level of Lust is Court of the Corpse King. The final level of each layer is a boss fight, and with a name like this, it's pretty obvious who we're facing. Riding a cart for a little bit, it suddenly stops, and a massive black hand comes out of the shadows. This is a very easy fight, as it only has 3 obviously telegraphed attacks, that being slamming the left wall, right wall, or the floor. Beating the hand, it withdraws back into the void, and later on we see who the hand belonged to. Yeah, this was incredibly obvious. A new character is introduced, specifically one who ruled this layer. Like, of course it was going to be Minos. I actually really like this fight. It can be hard to heal, so learning how to not suck is great. If you time it right, you can parry his punches to deal huge damage to him. Now, something you might be thinking. He's fucking ginormous. This is because his corpse is actually considered a husk. If you remember, husks form based on the souls that remember it, which is why the Filths are incomplete, as they were held in such low standing that they couldn't even generate a full form. This is the polar opposite to King Minos, who was so highly regarded by the citizens of Lust that his husk grew to immense proportions, even being granted eyes. There is not a single enemy in this game that has eyes. The husk's eyes are all gouged out, covered, or just not there to begin with. The machines don't have eyes. The demons may look like they have eyes, but that's just the design of the shell. Nothing has eyes, but Minos' corpse does. Minos' corpse is able to move because it's riddled with parasites, which explode from his aforementioned eyes after you deal enough damage. Something I love about Lust is that in each level, you can see Minos somewhere in the background, getting closer and closer as you move through the city. Minos' corpse endlessly looks for sinners to punish, which is why you can see him walking around and looking at his vast city almost like he's on a hunt. Killing Minos, again, an exit door appears in his mouth, leading us to layer 3, Gluttony. Something I've neglected to mention thus far, Ultra Kill is heavily inspired by Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, specifically Inferno, where he writes about the 9 circles of hell, which Ultra Kill matches exactly. In Ultra Kill, Minos is the king of lust and the judge of hell, the same job he holds in Dante's Inferno, sitting at the entrance to lust, the 2nd circle of hell, judging your sins to place you in the correct circle. In Dante's Inferno, those who were placed in lust were subjected to endless hurricanes and winds, which blew the sinners back and forth eternally. In Ultra Kill, lust is easily the most pleasant layer. It's a livable city, nothing miserable about it. This is because King Minos ushered in a renaissance, completely reforming the Lust Layer, turning it into a grand city. This is likely why Gabriel struck him down, as relieving sinners of their punishment or making it better in any way would directly go against the will of God. Minos was so good to those residing in Lust that he is still mourned over 1,000 years after his murder, and that's reflected in the soundtrack of the game. Each track of Lust has a sort of somber, sad tone, reflecting the emotions of the sinners after their king was struck down. It still obviously gets intense and breakcore-y, this is Ultrakill after all, but the sadness shines through nonetheless. In Greek mythology, Minos was the king of Crete, a heartless tyrant who would sacrifice children of Athens to the Minotaur every few years as revenge for the death of his own son. He died after Daedalus, famous architect and father of Icarus, scalded him to death with boiling water. After death, he became one of the 3 judges of Hades, the underworld, alongside his brothers Rhadamanthus and Aeacus, where he would be the final decision of what would happen to the soul that was judged. Rhadamanthus and Aeacus never appear in the game, but they don't really need to, as Rhadamanthus was the judge of souls of Easterners and Aeacus of those of the Westerners, with Minos having the final casting vote, deciding whether they rot in Tartarus or live in bliss in the Elysian Fields, or, in the case of Dante's Inferno and Ultrakill, deciding which layer they will endure eternal torture in. Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah. Layer 3 is gluttony, taking place partially in the stomach of Minos. In Dante's Inferno, those who were gluttonous were forced to exist in a disgusting slush caused by endless freezing rain, where they were endlessly mauled by Cerberus. Not that one, the actual Cerberus, the one from Greek mythology. Just as those who would subject their reason to their appetite, the Cerberus indulges in their face meat. It's really funny to me that at least a part of gluttony takes place in the stomach of Minos, since, you know, gluttony, excessive eating, anyway. Hell in Ultrakill is an extremely dreamlike place, almost making sense, but not really making any at all. Like, layer to layer, the aesthetic changes at the drop of a hat. The first level of gluttony is flooded with Minos' stomach acid, having us walk on bloody, fleshy mounds and entering through teeth doors. Entering the final level of Act 1, someone starts talking to you.
Machine, turn back now. The layers of this palace are not for your kind. Turn back, or you will be crossing the will of God.
Before you even see them, you know who it is. The man who acts exclusively in the will of God, the man who is literally a physical representation of the will of God. Gabriel, who's been appointed the judge of hell after he slew Minos. Gabriel is the most difficult boss so far. He moves quickly and has a wider variety of attacks than bosses previous. He has a special weakness to nails, possibly in reference to Christ being nailed on the cross. Gabriel, as was seen in Clair de Lune, is a revered angel, loved more than most because of his personality. Gabriel is voiced by Gianni Matrigano, who I personally know from this dub he made that I kept seeing on Twitter a few years ago.
You didn't need to post that.
Gabriel is very prideful, stopping the fight at multiple points just to taunt you. Some of these taunts are references to Devil May Cry, a game that, alongside stuff like Doom and Quake, massively inspired Ultrakill.
What? How can this be? Bested by this thing? You insignificant fuck! This is not over!
Huh, that wasn't very angel-like. While swearing is not a sin in and of itself, the manner in which it's used can easily make it so, and the way Gabriel used the big old F-bomb cursing your name is definitely laced with sin.
Yeah, that's the whole idea with the originally when I wrote the line like the "you insignificant fuck" Dave was like, that's not very angel-like, you should probably do something else. I was like, no, you don't understand. It is important that it says fuck. And it's like, that's like the... Obviously, I wasn't very good at explaining at the time, but the whole idea is just like, it's very un-angel-like, because it's sort of facade is just like completely crumbles and falls apart when he gets beaten by a machine. Because to him, that's like, to an angel, like a human beating an angel is like, that's like impossible. It's like, it can't even happen. So even something smaller than like a creation by a human, that's like physically impossible. They don't believe it can even happen. They believe that the only way that a machine can beat an angel is if the angel purposefully loses.
Exiting the level, Gabriel leaves you with a final message.
May your woes be many and your days few.
You know for a fact that this is not the last you'll see of Gabriel. We get some closing narration where Gabriel meets with the Council of Heaven. This is the first time he's ever lost a battle, and it's enough to make the Council question his loyalty, stripping away God's light from his body, giving him 24 hours to correct his mistake, lest the light remain removed from his body, causing his death. This one defeat in his lifetime of victory has stripped him of everything, and his rage is palpable. He will try his best to ensure your death. He loathes you, which is why Act 2 is named... Before you move on to Act 2, it would serve you well to go replay the levels in Act 1 to hone your skills, since Act 2 sees some very big difficulty spikes. Do you remember how I mentioned the ranks at the beginning of this video? Specifically the P ranks, where you need to complete the level with all S ranks and no deaths? Well, going for all those will certainly help you improve, but there's more to P ranks than bragging rights. By P ranking every level in the prelude in Act 1, you can find a door in 3-1 that will open, revealing a secret exit. This is Act 1's Prime Sanctum. The Prime Sanctums are known for being extremely difficult, especially Act 2's, but we'll get there when we get there. This level takes place in Minos' corpse, where you walk down a thin spinal column before entering a boss arena. The flesh prison is extremely annoying if you don't know what you're doing. It is completely immobile, spinning in the center of the room. It spawns a bunch of little guys, which when you deal enough damage to the flesh prison, will be used to heal it. Each little guy will heal back 10% of its health, so it's incredibly important to kill them first. The best way to do it is to nuke them with the core eject and malicious rail cannon as they spawn, which will kill most of them instantly. The flesh prison attacks you using a mix of homing projectiles of hell energy and divine beams of heavenly fire. This is the only enemy in the whole game to use both attack types. You will never see a husk or demon using divine beams, and you will never see an angel shooting hell orbs. It has this ability because the flesh prison was constructed by the angels to contain someone who threatened revenge on Gabriel and heaven. In the terminal data for Minos' corpse, it says that there were still small traces of his soul in the shambling husk. This is that trace of soul, Minos Prime.
Free at last. Oh, Gabriel. Now dawns thy reckoning, and thy gore shall glisten before the temples of man. Creature of steel, my gratitude upon thee for thy freedom. But the crimes thy kind have committed against humanity are not forgotten, and thy punishment is death.
This is a very interesting line of dialogue. Mankind is dead and gone, but before that there was the new peace. War was over. Humanity obviously made all of the machines for purposes of war and tried to repurpose some of them, but they still needed fresh blood to refuel, so it's not unthinkable that they started killing innocent people out of the need to survive. The same reason most of them are in hell. Minos Prime is the hardest enemy in the game at this point. He attacks extremely quickly, and you have to utilize any opportunity he gives you to heal off of him. It literally took me like 20 straight minutes of attempts to beat him the first time. Something I love about this fight is that it uses Minos' motif established in the Lust track Requiem. Also, he's voiced by Stephen Waite, known for voicing the main character in Blood, a really, really cool Doom clone.
I live again. Yeah, single white female.
Killing Minos Prime, there's a secret terminal, similar to those at the end of the secret levels. This one isn't a testament, but something about the terminals themselves, written by the people who made them. The terminals were meant to transfer data between Hell and the surface, but the Hell Exploration project was cut short, and correspondence between the surface and Hell ceased, while all Hell terminals still function. The Hell Exploration project was something mentioned briefly in the Street Cleaners terminal data. The terminal continues on to say that the terminals use the song they play to lure machines into a sort of relationship with them. You, as a player, come to associate this song with getting new weapons or useful information. The terminal tells you that more information is in Terminal Data 02, which lies at the end of the second Prime Sanctum. Minos Prime's terminal data gives more insight into why Gabriel killed him. He started reforming the Lust Layer because he didn't think eternal punishment was fair to those whose only sin was loving one another. He was able to get away with this for so long because he did it after God's disappearance, when the angels were in a state of chaos and panic and couldn't keep a watchful eye on the happenings of Hell. We already knew God abandoned man, but it turns out he just up and left altogether. There is no God anymore. The Council is the group of angels that took over after things settled, and they rule the heavens with an iron fist, which is seen in how they literally strip God's light from Gabriel, condemning him to death if he doesn't kill V1 the first time he loses a fight. Minos didn't even fight Gabriel, trying to reason with him, but reason wasn't in the cards. There's a portrait of Minos as he lived in the second level of Lust, and you can see he has thorns covering his eyes. As the judge of Hell, he wears this because justice is blind, but I can't help but notice the similarities between the thorns over his eyes and the crown of thorns worn by Jesus as he was crucified. Fair warning, I don't know anything about the Bible, so everything I say could be completely wrong. I'm just stealing this from some random website I found. In the Bible, thorns represent sin and the consequences thereof. When Jesus donned the crown of thorns, it was a representation of how he was King of Kings and how his ensuing death would relieve the world of its sin. In the same way, the thorns over Minos' eyes represent how he was the King of Lust, relieving its sinners of their punishment at the first opportunity he got. Leaving the Prime Sanctum, you can go through each level and collect all of the secret orbs and do all the challenges, but those don't do anything. They just give you a gold background for the level or act to show that you fully completed the levels, but I gotta say, it does feel really good to see those gold backgrounds. Anyway, no more delays. Act 2 starts with Greed, the fourth layer. In Dante's Inferno, greed was the circle that held not just those who hoarded money, but those who wasted it on frivolous purchases. Their eternal punishment was for the two groups to push heavyweights back and forth at each other. In Ultrakill, greed is based off of ancient Egypt, and in the first level you can see people carrying boulders up a massive pyramid, a very similar punishment as described in Dante's Inferno. The first level introduces the only angel enemy outside of Gabriel, the Virtue. They share a resemblance to Ophanim, Phantom Tax. I don't know how you say it. They share a resemblance to Ophanim, the angel comprised of rings with many eyes. The virtues that we see have no eyes, because once they're assigned to the position of Warden of Hell, they're either poked out or covered, but those who remain in heaven retain their eyes. Now, a question that you might have, one that many have. Why doesn't a single enemy outside of Minos' corpse have eyes? Minos Prime didn't even have a face. Obviously, from a gameplay standpoint, it makes their design creepier, more akin to something you'd think of in a Hell setting. But since this game takes inspiration from Dante's Inferno, it could be a reference to how Virgil calls Hell the blind world in Canto 4. Lesser angels like the Virtue form almost identically to husks, with the value of their soul determining their appearance. Lesser angels are always abstract or animalistic shapes, never humanoid to make them distinct from greater or supreme angels. Virtues attack with beams of heavenly fire, the same way the Flesh Prison did in the Prime Sanctum. Ignoring these enemies for too long will cause them to enrage, making their beams fire in front of you rather than right on top of you, making them much harder to dodge. The second level of greed is called Goddamn the Sun, in reference to how the sun is so hot it causes the sand that coats the entire level to be literally scalding, dealing damage over time and even killing lesser enemies that step onto it. I don't know if it was intentional, but the music in this level reminds me of a much more intense version of Crash Bandicoot 3's OST. I say I don't know if it was intentional, because if you press this button on the side of a building, enter the door it unlocks, and put this totem on the pedestal on the top of the building, the sun falls from the sky, letting you walk on the sand and enter the secret level. It's Crash Bandicoot. It's Crash Bandicoot. It's so cool. It's a really cool level. You even get to do one of the classic run towards the screen away from a boulder sections. If you break all the boxes, you unlock the Clash mode cheat, letting you play in the Crash Bandicoot style in normal levels. You even do Crash's little dance at the end of the level, which I literally love so much. This level, as per usual, ends with a testament. Uncountable cycles of creation wasted. Uncountable formulas for a mind without free will wasted. Damned is a man for failing to follow my rule, my word, my law. Damned to an eternity of torture and suffering, the wailing and gnashing of teeth. I have created hell, and I can no longer unmake it. It's clear that God massively regrets the creation of hell. He feels bad that people who don't follow his will, people who can't ever be 100% sure of his existence, should be tortured for eternity for transgressions they might not even know they were making. That's why he wishes that free will never existed, so that his creations could never do wrong by him and everyone would experience true bliss in heaven. There is something in the world of Ultrakill, though, that perfectly aligns with God's idea of a perfect creation. Something autonomous, but can never make its own decisions. The machines. All of the machines do exactly as they were programmed to do. Get blood. They were programmed with humans' interests in mind instead of God, so they're not necessarily what God wants, but it's a huge step in the right direction. No free will, no sin. Back to the second level, it introduces a new enemy, the Stalker. They used to carry boulders, but someone or something, the same someone or something who augmented the soldiers first seen in Lust, replaced the boulders with bombs, which will coat everything in the blast radius with sand. Sand-covered enemies do not bleed, making them a serious threat since you can't heal from them. The Stalkers are incredibly uncommon, but anywhere they show up, they need to be focused immediately since they'll target enemies based on an unseen priority rank. Enemies like Schisms or Strays have low priority ranks, while things like the Mind Flayer or Hideous Mass have very high priority ranks. In the extremely rare instance that a Swords Machine and Stalker are in the same arena as one another, the Swords Machine will actually attack the Stalker before it goes for you in order to sand itself. I just thought that was like a really cool, unique interaction. In the building past the introduction of the Stalkers, there's a book detailing how Sisyphus, king of the Greed Layer, has been building up an army of insurrectionists to one day go against heaven. When angels stopped showing up in Greed after God's disappearance, Sisyphus and his insurrectionists prepared for war. While Minos' revolution was done peacefully, King Sisyphus saw how it worked out for him, murdered without remorse. Sisyphus' revolt was done violently. With the way things are, people still carrying out their punishment, it looks like his insurrection didn't go very well. Sisyphus is a famous figure in Greek mythology. The man condemned by Zeus to endlessly roll a heavy boulder up a hill, only for it to fall before he reaches the top. He may have been the inspiration for Dante when it came to the punishment for the layer of greed, and it was definitely an inspiration for Ultrakill's greed, as you can see his insurrectionists dragging boulders up the pyramid in the first level. The level ends with a fight against one of the Sisyphean insurrectionists, who's missing a lot of his body. This is because when the council was established, they sent Gabriel and an army of angels to quell the insurrection. Sisyphus' army was too inexperienced to deal with the angels, so while the fight was well fought, the angels came out on top, killing Sisyphus and cutting apart each insurrectionist, leaving only their arm and 2 legs, just barely enough for them to continue their eternal punishment. The third level is a dark level, with you having to carry a torch the whole way to just barely give yourself enough light. It's definitely my least favorite level, but it's still good. Outside of the fact that it's incredibly dark, there's not much to talk about. This level does have a slight spike in difficulty in 2 of the arenas that just have a lot of enemies, and it can easily get overwhelming. There's a secret fight in this level, the mysterious Druid Knight and Owl. The fight is a reference to Mandalore Gaming and Shammy, and they even voiced the Knight and Owl respectively. The Knight has 2 attacks, Full Auto and Fuller Auto. Basically, this enemy just spouts out an ungodly amount of projectiles. These attacks are a reference to one of Mandalore Gaming's videos.
Let me introduce you to a starter weapon SMG. It has 2 fire modes, Full Auto and Fuller Auto. This could be the best game ever made.
Killing the Knight, there's a slab that mentions a secret somewhere in the pyramid, in the chamber of the feline and the rodent. The final level of Greed is a boss fight with V2 again, but before you reach the fight, you can notice a skull behind a door that you can't open. This will be relevant in like 2 minutes. Before the fight starts, you can see that V2 scavenged a green arm in the time since its first defeat. If you use the Knuckle Blaster at any point in this fight, V2 will immediately enrage. In the first fight, V2 bows, almost like a sign of respect, but here it offers no such respect. It maintains its shotgun, pistol, core eject, and pierce shot from the first fight, but now it also has the nail gun and marksman. The most interesting addition is the marksman. It flicks 3 coins into the air before shooting them, causing them to lock onto you. It'll also shoot any coins that you throw, so if you're not confident you can hit your coins, don't throw them, because V2 will not miss. Just like how V2 can shoot your coins, you can shoot its coins for good damage, especially if you get them while there are still 3 in the air. Beating the fight, V2 crashes through the wall, and V1 isn't gonna let that slide. V1 thinks here. It's not something I thought about until this moment, but the machines have some form of sentience. They can think and feel. I mean, obviously, right? They get mad. They can feel a form of hatred, as shown by V2. I mean, look at that. You can feel the hate in those knuckle cracks. The swords machine can be seen as ugly or beautiful by other machines. The Mind Flayer cares for its plastic body so much that it would rather blow itself up than let you destroy it, etc., etc. I don't think this fact changes much. I mean, does it really matter in the grander scheme if machines can feel or think? They still act on pure instinct, killing to survive. It's not like they enjoy killing or anything, they just have to do it to survive. Chasing V2 through the hole, the fight continues in a cool section where you're both sliding down the face of the pyramid, but this doesn't change much gameplay-wise. V2 still uses all of its attacks and everything, the only thing that really changes is that you can't jump. Beating V2, you both fall off the side of the pyramid. V2 has died, with all that remains being a pool of blood and the green scavenged arm. If you'll notice, before you both fell off the pyramid, you knocked V2's wings off, which is why you, even with weaker plating, were able to survive the fall while they were not. This green arm is a really cool feature, the Whiplash. It's both a combat and movement utility, with you being able to grapple onto these green ball things to cross over big gaps. You can grapple over to heavy enemies like the Malicious Face or Mind Flayer, or alternatively, you can Scorpion get over here lighter enemies, allowing for greater DPS because you don't have to move all the way over to the enemy, you can just bring it to you. If you learn how to use this effectively, it is an extreme game changer. There is something to note about the Whiplash though. When you hook lighter enemies, you acquire more hard damage the farther you drag them. On one hand, get good. If you just don't get hit, this isn't an issue, but for people like me who can't play the game, this is a pretty big deterrent from using this function. Replaying the level, you can use the Whiplash to grab the blue skull, causing the previously unopenable doors to open, revealing that this is the chamber of the feline and the rodent. Following the instructions on the slab in 4.3 and shooting the water with the electric rail cannon, another door opens up, revealing the corpse of Sisyphus, beheaded by Gabriel when the angels and the insurrectionists fought. There's a portrait of Sisyphus as he lived, similar to how you could find the portrait of Minos in 2.2. His eyes are bandaged with cheese dripping out from beneath.
It's not easy being cheesy.
In Greek mythology, he was incredibly greedy, so in Ultra Kill, the angels punished him by putting molten gold in his eyes in addition to his punishment of pushing the boulder up the hill. The best part of this room, though, is the alternate nail gun, the saw gun. This weapon is a game changer. It's better on the attractor, at least in my opinion. Here, you can set up a bigger trap that will insta-kill lesser enemies, or set one up before a boss fight, dealing a massive chunk of damage. They'll bounce around if no magnets are set, giving each shot more of a chance to actually connect. I personally found the regular overheat nail gun to be better, since with the saw blade you don't get that burst of fiery projectiles, just one big saw blade that shoots out. The slab and the saw blades are the only 2 alternate weapons in the game so far, with one to be added in Act 3 later in development. With Greed done and dusted, we move deeper into Hell, to Layer 5, Wrath. The previous 4 layers, Limbo, Lust, Gluttony, and Greed, were the 4 lesser sins. Sins that aren't the biggest deal, but are still enough to land you in hell. Wrath is the turning point for this, midway between the lesser and greater sins. In Dante's Inferno, Wrath is the river Styx. Those who were actively angry and hateful fought each other on the surface of slime, while those who were only passively angry and hateful stayed swimming in the river. In Ultra Kill, the river Styx is no longer a river, but a vast ocean, flooded by billions of souls after humanity's death. In Greek mythology, the river Styx is a river that separates the land from the living from the land of the dead. Here, it separates the lesser sinners from the greater sinners. The first level of Wrath is completely submerged underwater. No hard damage is applied when you use the Whiplash to pull enemies towards you underwater, which is great because using the Whiplash in this level is definitely a must, since underwater movement is so cumbersome without it. This level introduces a new enemy, the Sentries.
Sentry going up! Yeah! Ah, hell. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. Sentry down!
They'll dig into the ground to shoot at you, and once they're in place, they can't be moved. They have near perfect accuracy, and if a shot connects, it hits hard. The only way to uproot them is by shooting them with the electric rail cannon, shooting their antenna with a revolver, punching them with the knuckle blaster, or slamming the ground next to them. These are guys you should focus down, because if you don't, you will get sniped. The secret level of Wrath is in this level, hidden behind a vent. This level doesn't really have any thematic connections to the layer it's found in, other than water. It's a fishing level, and the level's name is literally referencing a fishing meme, which is awesome. You complete the level after catching all the fish, some of which are references to other games, like the fish thing from Iron Lung. This level, of course, ends in another testament.
Father, why eternal torment? Is it not cruel? Is torture, unending, truly a fate fit for a fool?
An angel so bright and beautiful asked me this, and I could find no answer, for I could never face the guilt of what I'd done. My regret, my gnawing cancer. In my hour of weakness, terror possessed me then, and I cast Lucifer too into the infernal den. Once I realized what I had just done, I could only weep, as I sank slowly into the depths of despair. Deep, oh so deep. Lucifer is a fallen angel who was cast out of heaven after growing envious of God's power, believing he should hold the same or greater power because of his beauty. Hey, so as I was editing this section, I went and did some more research on this because it just didn't sound right at all. While it is true that Lucifer was extremely prideful, finding himself more beautiful and wise than God, he was cast out of heaven not because of that alone, but because he actually rebelled against God and warred with heaven itself. The plan of salvation is where you follow the teachings of Jesus Christ and accept him as your savior so that your soul will be saved and you spend an eternity in true bliss in heaven. A major thing on God's mind throughout a lot of Ultra Kill is free will, and how it was a mistake to implement that into the human experience. In Christianity, free will is a thing embraced by God, a sort of test to see if you can accept the teachings of Christ even though you don't really have to. What spurred Lucifer's war on heaven was the fact that he believed that agency, the free will that God gave to humans, was a mistake, and that they'd be better off without it so that all humans would be able to return to God. He requested that God transfer his holy power unto him, but when that was refused, the war began. It was a conflict of ideologies. Allow people to walk the path of righteousness on their own merit, or force them to with no input from the human. Lucifer in Christianity and God in Ultra Kill share a common thought pattern. Free will bad. This is an extremely important detail that I'm super surprised that I missed. So in Christianity, Lucifer was cast from heaven because of the rebellion against God, but in Ultra Kill he's cast from heaven simply for questioning God about the cruel nature of hell. It's already been established that God regretted the creation of hell, but it's clearly deeper than that, as he describes it as a gnawing cancer. Lucifer is originally from Roman mythology, the personification of the morning star, but his name was used in Christianity to refer to Satan. It's clear that God massively regrets what he did to Lucifer. One more in a long line of regrets and failures. The second level of Wrath is where we get to see what the River Styx has become. It's a massive ocean filled with souls. There's a new enemy in this level, the Idol. They're completely stationary and don't attack, but they target one enemy to make invulnerable to all forms of damage until they're destroyed. This gets downright evil in a level I'm going to talk about a little later. They look divine, but they're demons. The only reason they look like that is because the ferrymen that collect them carve them into tributes of angels, specifically Gabriel. While most angels abhor any sinners and want as little contact as possible with them, Gabriel is different, saving a ferryman from drowning in the ocean Styx. Ferrymen are husks, so their souls are laced with sin, but they're still faithful to heaven, and as such were given a powerful holy cloth to hide their human form, which they despise because it reminds them of their previous life of sin. The cloth causes their skin to change color, along with giving them power. They hate their human form so much that they even rip off their own skin. Only one ferryman can exist at a time, since only one can operate the ship that carries souls across the ocean Styx. This causes them to fight to the death when two exist in one space. Every single skull key that you use throughout the game is the skull of a fallen ferryman, which I think is an insanely cool detail. A fight with the current ferrymen is started by breaking their idol. They're pretty quick, dodge rolling every 2 seconds like a Dark Souls player. The saw trap makes this fight a bit easier, as sometimes they'll just stand there and let it hit them. A really cool detail is that the ferryman will not start the fight until you break the idol. You can unload like 800 clips of ammo into his face and he just doesn't care. In Greek mythology, to cross the river Styx, you had to pay the toll to the ferryman or he wouldn't let you cross the river. By tossing a coin up to him, the ferryman just lets you enter his ship. No fight necessary. 5.3 is where I started to notice a really big spike in difficulty. This whole level is a ramped up version of 1.3. There are a few rooms where you have to fight hordes of enemies. Mind Flayers, Cerberus, Virtues, Sentries, all at once, and it was extremely hard for me to keep up with it all. The one that gave me the most trouble was basically the final arena in 4.3, but in a much tighter space, increasing the difficulty difficulty a ton since there's less room to move around. My first go around this level took me 13 minutes because I just kept dying. The more experienced players watching this are probably scoffing right now going, oh, that gave you trouble? Just get good, dumbass. To which I say, shut up, man, it was hard. Nukes make these arenas a lot easier since it wipes out a lot of lesser enemies and severely weakens the more powerful ones. This level houses a new weapon, the rocket launcher. I'll be honest, I never really used this weapon early on, but as I put more hours in the game, I found myself using it and its variants more often since it's pretty powerful. The freeze frame rocket launcher gets its name from the fact that you can right click to freeze any rockets you fire. This is great for stacking damage on the Cerberus. Since it has such a long wake up time, you'll be able to pop down a few rockets and unfreeze them once it's fully awake. This, combined with a Saw Trap, is enough to take most of its health, if not outright kill it. This weapon deals big damage, but it comes with the downside of only being able to hit on a direct hit, with any rockets to land near an enemy popping them up into the air, where a direct hit will cause a huge explosion, turning the enemy into nothing more than a meaty shower. It's also a red explosion, so it'll kill soldiers, who are usually immune to explosions. Oh yeah, did I mention that? There are two types of explosions, regular and red. Regular comes from stuff like core ejects and punching your shotgun pellets, and the red ones come from nukes, air shots with a rocket launcher, and parrying projectiles. There's a second rocket launcher you can buy later on, the SRS cannon, functioning identically to the freeze frame, but instead of the alt fire freezing your rockets, it fires a big ass cannonball. It's pretty good, especially the fact that you can use the whiplash to grab the projectile, bring it back to you, and punch it for big damage. The cannonball also does increased damage to Cerberi, letting you kill them pretty much instantly. Hey, this just got announced while I was editing, but the third rocket launcher has been revealed, the Firestarter. It's obviously not out yet, but it is coming in the next update. Right-clicking will spew out gasoline, coating any enemy and letting you slide faster when you shoot it on the ground like the orange gel from Portal 2. Shooting it will set it on fire. After grabbing the rocket launcher, the ship capsizes, making the next level take place underwater before Wrath's closing boss fight. The Leviathan is a creature that threatens to eat the souls of the damned after they die, and is usually the embodiment of chaos, fitting after the level before. It makes so much sense to have this creature here lurking in the depths of the ocean Styx, since there are a plentiful amount of souls here. It has two weak points, its mouth, where it spits out a large amount of projectiles, and the thing coming out of its back. The Leviathan is made up of souls that have sunk to the bottom of the ocean Styx, and the thing on its back is actually its heart, which tried to escape the beast before Gabriel came down and pinned it against the Leviathan with his spears. Killing the Leviathan, the ocean parts to reveal the exit. Moving on to Layer 6, this is the first of the greater sins, heresy. In Dante's Inferno, heretics who believed there was no afterlife were encased in flaming tombs. Heresy is actually the entrance to the city of Dis. Dis was the Roman god of the underworld, akin to Greek mythology's Hades. The city of Dis encompasses the entirety of Lower Hell, the 6th through 9th circle. In Wrath, Dante perceives high towers, fiery red mosques, and that is reflected in the levels of Heresy and Ultrakill. It's very red, with a heavy mist over the entire level. The first level sees the reintroduction of the Swords Machine as a common enemy. It's really neat looking back, because at this point, hopefully, you're more accustomed to the game and can take down most threats far easier than you could before. So you can look back on when you first fought the Swords Machine, how difficult that fight was, and compare it to now, where it's a lot easier to deal with. Don't get me wrong, they're still a huge threat, but the game knows you can handle it now. In the second level of Heresy, you can hear Gabriel say how machine influence has caused the layers of Act 1 to completely fall to ruin.
Your kind know nothing but hunger, purged all life on the upper layers, and kept the brain unsatiated. As to you, you've taken everything from the machine, and now all it remains is perfect hatred.
Reaching Gabriel, he delivers one final message to you.
Machine, I will cut you down, break you apart, splay the gore of your profane form across the stars. I will grind you down until the very sparks cry for mercy. My hands shall relish ending you here and now.
In your first encounter with him, he was the judge of hell, but now that he's been essentially abandoned by the council, he's the apostate of hate, with apostate being a word used to describe someone who has rejected the teachings of God. In Matthew 5:44, it says to love your enemy and bless those who curse you. Gabriel has completely abandoned this teaching, only wishing to see your death. In Dante's Inferno, the city of Dis is guarded by fallen angels, and that's exactly what Gabriel is here, a disgraced angel forsaken by the council. Gabriel is immediately enraged upon the start of the fight, but interestingly enough, calms down halfway through. He starts to enjoy the fight, evident in the way his taunts change throughout. His attacks are much harder and more difficult to dodge this go around, with him fueled first by rage, but then the love of the fight. Beating Gabriel, he doesn't leave in a fit of rage like the first time, but calmly explains he needs time to think, promising that they will meet again.
Twice, beaten by an object. Twice. I've only known the taste of victory, but this taste is this my blood? I've never known such relief. I need some time to think. We will meet again, machine. May your woes be many, and your days few.
Ironically enough, before the fight, Gabriel says this. This is contrasted by the name of Act 2, Imperfect Hatred, named after the fact that Gabriel was never filled with hate, just a burning passion. The act ends with Gabriel sitting by a campfire, reflecting on all the people he's killed and the sinners he's condemned to hell because it was God's will. When you defeated him, his worldview was broken, his view on the will of God shattered, and when he tries to put the pieces back together, he finds that they never fit to begin with. God is gone, and the council are chasing the fleeting embers of his light and his will, but the word of God has been telephoned so much that its meaning is shifted completely. This is likely referential to how I said some, don't get mad at me in the comments, how some Christians warp the teachings of Christ to mean whatever they want them to mean. Gabriel has been following the will of the cruel, iron-fisted council rather than God, and upon realizing this, seeks to change heaven's status quo by deposing the council. By doing this, he has condemned himself to death, as the counselors were the only ones who were able to return God's light back to Gabriel, but that doesn't matter to him. In his eyes, his death is a small sacrifice for relieving heaven of its tyrants. Gabriel gives one final wordless message to the citizens of heaven before descending into hell one final time. It's another Christ-like moment from Gabriel. He's had moments like that before, as he's the one who relieves sinners in limbo, the one who came down from heaven to save the ferryman from drowning, and now condemning himself to death to save heaven from its oppressors, the same way Christ died to save the earth from the sins of man. Fun fact, when Gabriel shows the head of the counselor to heaven's masses, the soundbite Horns of Insurrection plays, and it sounds very reminiscent of something you'd hear in Greed towards the end. Because despite the fact that he quelled Sisyphus' insurrection and tore apart his soldiers, Gabriel just did exactly what they wanted to do from the start, that being shaking the foundations of heaven and showing them that they can't expect compliance from the people they beat down on. Really, Gabriel and the insurrectionists share more similarities than you'd think. They're forced into submission, condemned to do a task because it's God's will, then anger builds up once they realize what's going on, which then explodes into violence. With heresy done, we can P-rank all of the levels in Act 2 and find the door to the second Prime Sanctum. This is by far the most difficult level in the entire game, with many incredibly difficult arenas that force you to use your entire arsenal just to barely scrape by. For example, the first room, the Weezer room, has you face 4 Cerberei at once. Pretty tough, but not really that big of a deal. But once 2 have been killed, a ferryman spawns, with 2 virtues placed outside of the room, unable to be killed until all the enemies have been killed. It's a lot to keep track of, and this continues all throughout the level. The final arena was the bane of my existence for a while, where a stalker, the enemies that cover other enemies in sand, is made invincible with an idol. While stopping that guy from sanding your enemies, you have to kill 2 swords machines, another ferryman, a few strays, and after that there are sentries, virtues, and Cerberus, along with an invincible hideous mass. That's fucking crazy. After this, you reach the boss door, with a lot more security than Minos Prime, having to unlock 3 doors and confirm that you actually want to do this. Entering the boss arena, you face against the Flesh Panopticon. It's a stronger version of Minos' Flesh Prison, phrasing, because it holds a much stronger foe. You don't even get to kill the Panopticon, as the Prime Soul it traps breaks out on its own.
This prison to hold a visitor. Indeed, I have slept long enough. The kingdom of heaven has long since forgotten my name, and I am eager to make them remember. However, the blood of Minos stains your hands, and I must admit, I'm curious about your skills, weapon, and so, before I tear down the cities and crush the armies of heaven, you shall do as an appetizer. Come forth, child of man, and die.
This is Sisyphus Prime, voiced by Lenval Brown, who's known for being the narrator in Disco Elysium.
Okay, cool. I won't.
She means it. She wouldn't defy authority, however sweaty and bloated it may look.
While Minos held a peaceful rebellion, quietly reconfiguring the Lust Layer while heaven was in chaos, Sisyphus warred with the angels alongside his insurrectionists. Minos obviously had combat experience, but not as much as Sisyphus did. Minos Prime was an incredibly difficult enemy, but Sisyphus Prime makes it feel like a cakewalk. He's much faster, with attacks that are hard to dodge. He's in the air for like 80% of the fight, making saw traps harder to use effectively. Almost every single one of his attacks can be parried, which is a great way to heal in a fight where it can be incredibly difficult to do so otherwise. Like Minos, Sisyphus will call out what attacks he's gonna do, with signaling 4 kicks with the final one parryable, signifying a massive explosion which can also be parried, etc, etc. He gets much harder in phase 2, with attacks coming out quicker, and he chains attacks together, making it that much harder to understand what's happening.
So concludes the life and times of King Sisyphus. A fitting end to an existence defined by futile struggle. Doomed from the very start. And I don't regret a second of
Unlike Minos, who died with an apology to the children of lust and a scream, Sisyphus knows that everything he did, he never had any chance of overcoming. Rolling the boulder up the hill, warring the heavens, and fighting you were never going to be fruitful, and he knew that, but continued on anyway. He didn't expect to win against a fleet of angels, but he knew that laying down his life for the cause, standing and fighting, would do more to send a message than just sitting and taking it as Minos did. He reveled in the act of resistance, in glorious battle and rebellion. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Also, just like Minos had his motif play in the track Requiem, you can hear Sisyphus's motif play back in the track Sands of Tide. Something I noticed here was that the Prime Souls speak to you much less callously than angels, with Minos calling you a creature of steel and Sisyphus calling you child of man, while Gabriel sticks to the much colder, more distant machine or even just object. The rulers of lust and greed can see you for what you truly are, a living creature that can feel, a being with the drive to survive, while Gabriel can't see past the surface. With simple phrasing like this, it shows that there's a role reversal of heaven and hell. Traditionally, heaven is a great place with great people, and hell is a terrible place with terrible people. However, in Ultrakill, heaven is a much colder concept, with angels looking down on humanity as if it was nothing, valuing machines even lower than them, even though they can still think and feel. Ultrakill's hell is shown as much more sympathetic than traditional views, as both of the major rulers that we've met so far have only been trying to better the situation of their citizens. Minos wanted to relieve the children of lust from their torture because he believed eternal torment was not a fair sentence for the horrible crime of love, and Sisyphus wanted to do the same for the sinners of greed, though Sisyphus is depicted as a much more self-centered character. He's the king of greed, so it makes sense. He knew the insurrectionists stood no chance of winning against heaven, but warred with them anyway to send a message. Whether the insurrectionists knew that they were going to lose or not is unknown, but going under the assumption that they didn't, Sisyphus essentially sacrificed thousands of souls for personal enjoyment, as he was in it partially for the glory of battle and rebellion. This colder personality is reflected by the fact that along with calling you child of man, he refers to you as a weapon first. This may just be because of his more war-focused mentality, but it could also be because he just doesn't really care as much about you as Minos might have. With each layer deeper into hell you go, the crimes get more and more unforgivable, with lust being almost unwarranted, which is why it's the closest to the entrance of hell, and something like violence being a despicable act, explaining its placement so deep in hell. Thus, it makes sense for the ruler of lust, a circle with more sympathetic sinners, to be a more sympathetic character, while the ruler of greed, a less sympathetic circle, is a colder character. By the time we reach the third Prime Soul, the ruler of one of the most unforgivable sins in the eyes of God, it wouldn't be surprising for them to be just as uncaring for you as the angels would. Another, less important detail I noticed was that Sisyphus's Prime Soul has no head, just an outline vaguely resembling a face. Gabriel killed Sisyphus by beheading him, which means that the way a sinner died might determine their appearance as a Prime Soul. We were never told how Minos died, just that Gabriel struck him down, but going on this theory, he likely stabbed him in the face with one of his spears. Anyway, the secret terminal data at the end of the fight adds more context to the first, where it said that terminals lure machines in with their music. The terminals are incredibly bored. With no information being given to them from the surface, they're left to analyze things they already know about. To find entertainment, they grade the performances of machines they encounter, giving them points to encourage them to be more entertaining to watch. The terminals have even developed a virtual arena that machines can hook into called the Cybergrind, where they have live entertainment rather than watching it on a playback. At the end of every act, the game asks if you want to insert the next act's Holy sh*, that is such a tongue twister. At the end of every act, it asks if you want to insert the next act's disc. That is fucking impossible to say. At the end of every act, it asks if you want to insert the next act's disc. Maybe all that we've played through have just been recordings analyzed by the terminals. Terminal Data 02 also mentions the Hell Exploration and Excavation Project again, something we've gotten fleeting messages of throughout the story. It was abruptly cancelled, with more information being in Data 00. There's an error message before it says why the project was cancelled. If you put this string of letters into a YouTube watch link, you get access to an ARG. Oh. I thought I was done with ARGs after this video, but I guess not. It all started with the teaser for the second Prime Sanctum, where the song's description had a bunch of numbers, which got translated to a poem, yada yada yada, and we eventually get to the terminal and the YouTube link, which leads to an encoded message detailing how hell is literally alive. It's a living, breathing, thinking organism. It is cruelty incarnate. Hell itself is what augmented the soldiers and stalkers, taking pieces of machinery and transfixing them to various sinners for its own entertainment. The message, written by the same man who wrote the terminal data segments at the end of the Prime Sanctums, goes on to say how they need to withdraw all efforts from Hell before it finds a way to spread to the surface. The message ends with Hell taking over the document. This could just be Hell intercepting the message, but it could also be Hell escaping out into the surface world. Earlier, I used Minos Prime's words to explain that machines were likely the cause of the death of man, going around killing everybody to refuel on blood. However, his words could also have just been referring to the 200-year-long war for which the machines were built. It could have been the encroaching hell on the surface that caused the death of humanity. We never see the surface in the game, so it could be completely overrun by hell. I personally believe that machines were responsible for mankind's death, like that is the most logical conclusion. I'm just offering up another perspective. Finishing up with Act 2, we can finally move on to Act 3, starting with Layer 7, Violence. Interestingly, the first level doesn't take place in the 7th circle, but in a sort of crossover point between heresy and violence. It's, very white. This is the Garden of Forking Paths, a concept very prevalent in my other video that you should watch, by the way. The Garden of Forking Paths is a short story by Jorge Luis Borges, an Argentinian writer. Basically, each decision you make now in the present will cause you to move towards another future. Example, you could sit in your gamer chair and play Ultra Kill all day, like me, or you could go out for a run and get some exercise in. Both lead to their own forking path. With one, you get sweaty and gross, and the other, you go for a run and better yourself. The music in this level is surprisingly calm, though as you proceed, it gets more sinister. Throughout this level, you'll notice white and red statues in some rooms doing literal JoJo poses. They appear motionless, that is, until you pick up a red skull and go to place it on the pedestal. This jump scare gets me literally every time I play this level, by the way. These are the mannequins, who, unlike most demons, aren't made of hell mass, but instead the sinners of violence who attempted to escape through the Garden of Forking Paths when heaven was in chaos. They were ripped apart, joint by joint, placed inside hollow shells where they sit in agony for all eternity. These guys, like the soldiers and stalkers, were created by hell for its own amusement. If you were especially observant, you might have noticed the ragged breathing coming from them. And the fact that they would change poses whenever you looked away. These enemies are extremely fast, but they're easy to take down. A single parry will instantly kill them, same with punching them while they're in midair. They're essentially a more dangerous filth, fodder enemies who can be taken down incredibly easily after some practice, but if you get careless, you are going to die. Partway through the level, you'll see a massive bull-looking demon crashing through the labyrinth. Later on, you'll get on a tram, with the creature chasing you down the tunnel. This is the Minotaur, the bastard child of Minos' wife, and a literal bull. Yeah, Greek mythology gets kind of f***ed up sometimes. In Ultra Kill, though, the Minotaur was a gift to Minos from an unknown source. In Myth, Minos hid away the beast in the labyrinth built by Daedalus. This is exactly what he did in Ultra Kill, though it was sent to the Garden of Forking Paths rather than Daedalus' labyrinth. It's hard to heal from the Minotaur in this fight since it's so far away, so trams loaded with strays will occasionally roll up on you, giving you a quick burst of health. You beat the Minotaur, only for it to show up again before the level's end, where you kill it for real. Its terminal data is all written in red and crossed out, a direct reference to the book House of Leaves, where every mention of the creature is written in the same way. In the terminal data, it says the Minotaur was given to Minos by someone, but the name has been crossed out. 2 words, 4 letters followed by 6. The crossed out name is most likely Hell itself, as the Minotaur was made to be a cruel reminder of Minos' sins in life, and it also looks similar to the mannequins in that it looks like it could be sinners shoved into a hollow shell. In Dante's Inferno, before the main characters were able to enter the Circle of Violence, they were menaced by the Minotaur. Violence, unlike the other circles of hell, has 3 sub-circles called rounds, with each level going through them. The first round, and thus the second level, is violence against thy neighbors, where murderers and tyrants will be forced to lay in a river of boiling blood for eternity, and this level does have the river of blood running through it. Since this is the round where war makers suffer, there's a lot of gunfire. The design of this level is super cool, with huge machines seen in the distance, illuminated by lightning strikes, but their piercing white eyes are always visible. There's more to say about these 3 machines in particular, but I'll talk about them a bit later. Now that we're actually in violence, there are a lot more enemies, with them being, you guessed it, violent, even fighting amongst themselves just to get a taste of the fight in the next level. 7.2 introduces 2 new enemies, the Gutter Men and the Gutter Tanks. The Gutter Men were the first machines introduced into the final war, giant, lumbering walls who quickly put an end to trench warfare. As they were the first, blood fuel technology wasn't totally developed, and they didn't know how to keep the fuel fresh in its tanks, so they had to use PTSD-stricken soldiers who could no longer fight, or prisoners of war, and weld them shut inside the machine, causing immense suffering. Hell itself noticed how cruel mankind could be and took direct inspiration from the Guttermen to make the mannequins, unwilling participants shoved in a vessel with no chance of escape. Fun fact, when you kill a Gutterman, the thing on its back will sometimes bust open, revealing the rotting corpse inside. A fair bit after the success of the Guttermen in wiping out trench warfare, the Gutter Tank was developed, an improved version of the Gutterman. They have better plating, allowing them to eat more damage, but also a change in their weapons was made, with the Guttermen having Gatling guns and shields and the Gutter Tanks having only a rocket launcher. After the success of both the gutter men and tanks, human soldiers were phased out of the war entirely. But since all available resources were going towards the creation of war machines, home life was strenuous. The gutter men were developed in Russia, as can be seen by the Cyrillic writing on its arm standing for man tank, and the gutter tanks were developed in Germany, since on its arm the words fist tank are written in German. This level makes extensive use of the grapple points, introducing a new yellow variant that opens doors. Completing these fast enough, you'll be able to enter into small rooms containing slabs similar to the ones you found in each level of Limbo. There are only 3, and clicking them all, you can go through a hole in the church to reveal... oh. Well, this is going to be another alternate weapon like the slab or saw gun. If I had to guess, I'd say it's either the shotgun or rocket launcher. Like, I couldn't even fathom what an alternate rail cannon would be since it's already so varied in its utility. The second round of violence is violence against oneself, where people who attempted or died by suicide were transformed into mangled trees, where harpies, another creature from Greek mythology, would feast on them. You can see this reflected in the level, with trees having visible ribs and pelvic regions. Later on, you'll see other trees, one that spawn enemies composed only of blood. By killing them, you feed the trees, causing them to blossom. This is very similar to the Joboko of Japanese folklore, a tree that sustains itself on human blood. I've seen theories on Reddit that these trees are similar to husks, and that the more you're remembered by souls, the bigger your tree would be. Maybe those with more influence, people held in higher regard, would become these blood trees. So the random Joe Blow across the street would be a regular tree, but someone like Kurt Cobain would be a blood tree. Coming across the first tree, red text appears telling you to feed it. This is hell speaking directly to you, denoted by its red color and the space between every letter, similar to the Prime Sanctum ARG I talked about a little bit ago. Hell is a very prominent character now ever since it was revealed that it was alive in the Prime Sanctum ARG. Like, it appears in every single level of violence, in level 1 as a book, and level 2 telling you that you need a bigger explosion to clear out the rubble, now in level 3 telling you to feed the tree, and later in level 4 in a book that I'm going to talk about. You have to fill up 3 more of these trees, with each of the blood enemies taking on the appearance of increasingly difficult enemies, going from filths to strays to mannequins. The final tree is an arena filled to the brim with enemies. It reminds me of how much I struggled on that one room in 5.3, and it showed me how far I came, as this one has harder enemies like gutter tanks and swords machines, but it just didn't feel as overwhelming as the other arena. Granted, this could have just been because every enemy is infighting and took each other out while I was focused on other enemies, but you know, it's not as cool if I say that, so. I originally confused these blood trees for the Tree of Life, something mentioned in a book in the first level of violence. None of these trees are that one, as it's situated in heaven and not in one of the deepest circles of hell. The Tree of Life is what breathes life into all of God's creations. It gives us the nectar of life, flowing blood through our veins. In this level, there's a gate hidden behind shrubbery that, no matter what you do, will not go away. In the first level of violence, you could find a hidden boss fight by putting the blue skull on the mannequin where you get the red skull. Big Johninator is a reference to Big John, a boss in New Blood's other game, Dusk. Defeating him, there's a slab, similar to the one found after killing the mysterious Druid Knight in 4.3, that says there's a gate hidden behind foliage somewhere in violence, which we know is the one in 7.3 that no blade could cut. The slab theorizes that the only way to destroy the vines is a fire hot enough to melt metal, obviously referencing the street cleaners. Leading the 2 street cleaners found in the level to the gate, the vines burn away and reveal... oh. Well, this will be Violence's secret level. It takes me by surprise every time I remember that this game isn't finished yet. I know I've said it a couple times, but it's true, okay? Shut up. It's possible that the third rocket launcher, the Firestarter, the one that comes out in the next update, will be able to burn down the vines, seeing as the video the devs posted on Twitter showed that the fire was able to damage machines, meaning it can melt metal, meaning it should be able to burn away the bushes. The final subcircle of violence is violence against God, art, and nature. In Dante's Inferno, God, nature, and art are all connected. Art springs from nature, and nature springs from God, so in Dante's eyes, all 3 were violence against the creator. In Ultra Kill, this violence is represented by the giant machine we've been seeing in the distance of the last 2 levels, the Earth Movers, known internally as Centaurs. Do you remember the 3 Earth Movers standing in the distance in the second level? Well, in Dante's Inferno, there were 3 Centaurs who stood guarding the River of Blood, encompassing the round of violence against neighbors, Chiron, Nessus, and Pholus. That's who these 3 Earth Movers are. It's not really a relevant detail, but I think it's a really cool touch for those who have actually read Dante's Inferno. Back to the final level of violence, this is the most unique boss fight so far. Earth Movers are rendered invulnerable due to the shield generator housed inside of their body, so you have to climb up and into the machine. You can see a small town on it at one point, because the Earth Movers were used to burn down entire cities, rendering much of the world completely uninhabitable, leaving survivors with no choice other than to settle on the backs of the machines. The Earth Movers were created in Japan, as you can see that every caution sign is written in Japanese. Taking down the shield generator, you can make your way farther into the beast. We're able to see the internals of the machine here, which is mostly organic with bits of industrial steel. This is what the inside of every machine looks like. This is just the first time we've been able to actually see it. Farther in, you can find its brain, and destroying it, a countdown starts, and you have to quickly evacuate before it explodes. There's one burning question I've had since I first learned about it in the Street Cleaner's terminal data. What caused the new peace? Why did the final war come to a close after 200 long years? The Earth Movers. The Earth Movers were made to burn and destroy, and they did so efficiently that smoke and soot eventually blotted out the sun entirely. This event knocked clarity into the human race, and finally seeing the destruction they've caused worked to usher in an era of peace. And it worked for a time, until the machines needed to refuel. Do you remember the tagline, "Mankind is dead, blood is fuel, hell is full"? There were originally 4 phrases, with the removed one being, "Machine is king." It makes perfect sense, as the machines are programmed to refuel and literally nothing can stop them, because they'll keep fighting until they're either refueled or dead. The Earth Movers are the epitome of violence against God and nature. They don't really connect to violence against art, because when Dante speaks of violence against art, he's speaking of usury, the practice of unfairly charging interest on loans. Usurers don't make their money from artistic ability, painting, poetry, theatrical performances, what have you, but instead they get money by preying on the less fortunate, those who need loans, those who most likely wouldn't be able to pay it back. If you can connect that to the Earth Movers, good on you, because I could not. When Dante speaks of violence against nature, he's talking about gay people, but I have to imagine that Hikita recontextualized it to being about life itself. The machines encompass this violence against nature as they were literally meant to destroy cities full of people. God's creations fell en masse because of this creation. The entire idea of the Earth Movers is an affront to God, his creations, and his will. It is a symbol of the very worst of humanity. You can find a book displaying the words of hell on the back of the Earth Mover, and it's plainly obvious that it is revered by hell, as it's one of the most cruel machines so far, killing indiscriminately just so their side can win, uncaring of the greater picture of life. Evacuating the Earth Mover, it explodes, falling to pieces, and we're able to leave violence. Yep, that's it. For now, at least. Ultrakill has been undergoing steady development since 2019, but it started all the way back in 2018. The game is only developed by a handful of people, so updates come out slowly, as they're ready. It's an indie development team, so there's no pressure of deadlines. They can take as much time as they need to make the perfect game. To give you some clarity, the second Prime Sanctum was added in mid-March 2023, and the layer I just discussed, Violence, only recently got added in late December of the same year. While we don't have many clues what the future will bring for this game, we can make some guesses based off of information provided. Gabriel is likely going to be the game's final boss, as he was the closer for both Act 1 and 2, and he ended up returning to Hell after killing the Council. Or who knows, maybe Gabriel will team up with V1 to kill Hell, relieving sinners of their torment, one last good deed before his death. Lucifer may make an appearance, either in Treachery or after, as a sort of post-layer's boss, seeing how in Dante's Inferno he's at the very center of Hell, which is exactly where we're heading. While the layers of Hell in Ultrakill don't always line up exactly with Dante's Inferno, I'll still talk about the final 2 circles. The 8th circle of Hell is Fraud, where 10 ditches are dug for 10 different types of fraudsters, those being Panders and Seducers, Flatterers, Simoniacs, Sorcerers, Beraters, Hypocrites, Thieves, Counselors of Fraud, Sowers of Discord, and Falsifiers. Each ditch has their own punishment reserved for those specific sinners. Alright, theory time. The Prime Soul that will lie in the 3rd Prime Sanctum might be revealed in Fraud. In Dante's Inferno, there was a great monster lying in the Circle of Fraud, Geryon. He would get sinners to trust him enough to ride on his back, where he would then sting them with his scorpion tail. He could very easily be recontextualized as the King of Fraud, which is what Hikita did for Minos, as Minos in Dante's Inferno only sat at the entrance to Lust, he wasn't the King of the Circle. If you're watching this video after the 3rd Prime Soul was revealed and I'm right, smash like and subscribe! Jesus, what am I doing? I really don't think the blanks in the Minotaur's terminal data have anything to do with the 3rd Prime Soul, as I've seen people theorize. It's blanked out and the entire entry is written in red, which is a reference to House of Leaves, but also anytime Hell speaks or writes, the text is red. The Minotaur was a cruel gift to Minos, a reminder of his sins as he lived, and who could be crueler than Hell itself? The 9th and final circle of Hell is Treachery, where those who were traitorous to their families, countries, guests, or lords were embedded in a lake of ice, with each one sinking farther beneath the surface. This This layer will likely be a snowy or icy level depending on how much Hikita wants to draw from Dante's Inferno. Hopefully, if it is an icy level, the ice physics are manageable. I've never liked slippery levels in games, I find them incredibly annoying, and if the game ends on a slippy level, that would be very unfortunate. I mean, the game has taken features I don't like in games like dark levels or water levels and made them fun, so I don't see why an ice level couldn't work. Alongside 2 new layers, there's still a lot to be added, like the 3rd alternate weapon, the secret levels of Violence and Fraud, the gold arm, the 3rd shotgun, nail gun, and rocket launcher, and, once all the levels come out, the final Prime Sanctum. I don't even want to imagine what the 3rd Prime Sanctum would bring, dude. The 2nd one was already too much for me, I only barely managed to get through it. And who knows, maybe if you're able to P-rank all the Prime Sanctums, there'll be a Prime Sanctum for that, too. I don't know, you fight against, like, Jesus Prime or something. And now, a message directly to you, the one who watched this whole video until the very end. Please buy the game, play the game, get sucked into it, learn the mechanics, improve and hone your skills in time for the harder levels, get excited for the future of this game. I know I am. And I'll be there the moment the next updates come out. Because Ultra Kill... because Ultra Kill is the best game that hasn't come out yet.
He said it! He said it!
Also, before you click off, a final fun fact to end the video. Ultra Kill has an official mod created by one of the devs that lets you connect a butt plug to the game which will vibrate harder the more your screen shakes. Enjoy that information. Big thanks to people who joined as a channel member. Well-Dressed Moose Rider, Lovu, MK Ultra Survivor, Alexander Brobeck, Herkind Hyris, The Shigler, Nitsu, Mirat Serder Ozel, Smitty Werben Jaegerman Jensen, Izzy, Le Capitaine, Admiral Sloth, Retro Junkie, and my band Pig Vomit has 3 sales. Congratulations, man. Good on you. Good on ya. Also, thanks to Retro Junkie for being the voice of Lucifer. She's the only reason I played this game to begin with, and thus the only reason this video exists. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, subscribe if you want to, don't if you don't. I've been Howard, and I'll see you when I see you.